Does everyone stipulate to the remote swearing of the witness by me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thanks.
All right. Good morning, Miss. Is it Durant?
It's Durante.
Durante. Good morning, Miss Durante.
Good morning.
My name is Matt Kahn. I represent Kendall Thomas's family in this case. If you will, just state your full name for the record.
Yes, Joanne Durante. That's with a D.
Okay. And you've been identified as a school administration expert in this case. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And does that area of expertise include policies and procedures for keeping students safe?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to get into a lot of this in more detail, but I want to see if you agree with some basic safety principles relating to school campuses. Excuse me. Do you agree that student safety on school campuses is important?
It's like the #1 priority. Yes.
Do you agree that do you agree that a reduced speed limit is one way of keeping students safe?
Yes.
Do you agree that having a designated crosswalk is one way of keeping students safe?
Yes.
Do you agree that schools typically have lower speed limits for the safety of students?
Yes.
Okay. Do you agree that one reason for lower speed limits on school campuses is that students may be walking around the campus?
Yes.
Do you agree that it's important for a person driving on a school campus to pay special attention for students?
Yes.
Do you agree that it's important for a person driving on a school campus to drive the speed limit?
Yes.
Do you agree that it's important for a person driving on a school campus to be cautious when approaching a crosswalk?
Yes.
Do you agree that it's easier for a driver to stop when the driver is going slower?
I suppose.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a yes or no answer from my point of view, because I don't know how fast a driver's going and how quickly they can stop. So that's where I'm,
That's fair. It's a general broad question, so that I understand. Do you agree that teenagers generally don't assess risk the same way that adults do?
I would say yes to that.
Do you agree that students are generally more easily distracted than adults as drivers?
Objection, but
Yeah,
you can.
I don't know that. I can't answer that.
Do you agree that students are typically inexperienced drivers?
Yes.
Do you agree that it's foreseeable that a person might enter a crosswalk?
Object to the form, but you can answer.
Driving or walking?
But what do you mean?
You said, do you see if it was foreseeable? Repeat the question.
Sure. Do you agree that it's foreseeable that a person might enter a crosswalk?
Same objection, but you can answer.
Yes.
And that's why there are crosswalks, right? To indicate that someone might be crossing.
Yes.
Object to the form, but you can answer.
Yes.
Do you agree that it's even more foreseeable that a student might enter a crosswalk when school is letting out?
Objection to the form, but you can answer.
Yes.
Okay. So now I want to sort of shift from general, school safety principles to just to some of the facts of this case to see what you agree with, just to kind of gauge where we're going today. So do you agree that Kendall Thomas was a student of North Paulding High School?
Yes.
Do you agree that Isabella Field was a student of North Paulding High School?
Yes.
Do you agree that Kendall Thomas was within the crosswalk at the time Isabella Field struck her?
In the crosswalk? I'd have to relook at the video one more time.
Okay, and we can do that right now, actually, because I'm gonna ask a few questions. You'll bear with me.
Sure.
That is the one exhibit I did not have already pulled up, so give me just a second.
Been a technological morning.
All right. Let me know once the video loads on your screen. It looks like it's taking a little time right now.
It indicated to me that you started screen sharing, so
It's not up yet.
It looks like I'm frozen. Y'all can still hear me though?
Same like last time.
Yes,
Let the record reflect that I need a new computer. Okay, I think
You in charge of stuff like that? Can't you do that?
I now have a visual on the campus.
okay, great. All right, so this is plaintiff's exhibit 1, which is the field house video. So I'm gonna go ahead and play it for you.
Matt, it's
Oh,
Yeah, we
It's
lost it.
not playing correctly.
let me get a different copy of it. This is the all right, so I'm gonna show a different video actually.
Okay.
Oh, no, it's
Nice.
frozen
Let's all go
again.
there.
All right, can you see plaintiff's exhibit 2, the bus footage?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so having seen the video, plaintiff's exhibit 2, do you agree that Kendall Field was within the crosswalk at the time Isabella Field struck her?
Yes,
Do you agree that at the time of the collision, school had just let out?
Object to the form, but you can answer.
I would say at the time of the incident, the buses were releasing.
Okay, so you would not agree that school had just let out?
Object to the form.
School let out about minutes prior to that accident.
Okay, so let me rephrase the question then. Do you agree that at the time of the collision, school had been dismissed minutes before the collision?
Yes,
Do you agree that at the time of the collision, there were buses actively leaving school campus?
yes,
Do you agree at the time of the collision, there were a pack of students standing on the side of the road in front of the field house?
yes,
Object to the form, but you can answer.
yes, from the previous video that you started to show.
Okay. Do you agree that the speed limit on North Paulding High School's campus is 15 miles per hour?
I don't really know that in the sense that I have not seen signs, etc., and that wasn't my task.
Did you do anything to investigate what the speed limit was on the high school campus?
I read about it in the handbook, but I did not investigate that aspect.
Okay. What was the speed limit on campus from your review of the handbook?
Well, in the handbook, it indicated that students were required to travel at 10 miles per hour.
Okay. Do you agree that Isabella Field was driving above the speed limit when she hit Kendall Thomas?
I have no way of knowing that from a video.
If you're offering opinions about school safety, don't you think it's important to know the speed at which Isabella Field was driving?
Objection, you can answer.
if that were the aspect that I was reviewing, possibly, but that is not what I reviewed.
All right, let me just look in there. All right. Did you ask anyone how fast Isabel was driving? At any-
No, I did not.
Does the speed that Isabel Field was driving matter to you at all for your analysis?
No.
All right. So I guess you had said, I'd asked you about the speed and you said you didn't need to. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, you just were fading in and out. That's all.
Here, let me see if I can fix that. Are you able to hear me better now?
Yes, clearly.
Okay.
Thank you.
It was a little chunky before.
Sorry about that. So
That's okay.
you'd mentioned that the speed was not it's not relevant to your aspect of review. I don't have the exact language. What were you hired to review?
I was actually reviewing the process that needed to be in place by school administration at the point of dismissal. The speed matters, but it doesn't matter from the perspective that I had taken.
Okay. All right. So what is going on now? Okay. So at this time, I'm going to mark your entire file as plaintiff's exhibit 710. And we'll go through some of it here, but I just wanted to have the whole file attached to the deposition. So I'm going to pull up plaintiff's exhibit 710.1. If you'll bear with me. All right, can you see plaintiff's exhibit 710.1 on your screen?
Yes,
And does this list represent all of the materials that you reviewed in forming your opinions in this case?
yes,
And did you in fact review each of the items listed on this document?
yes, I did.
All right, so I have some questions about some of these, not each of them.
Okay.
So for point number one, you said that you reviewed video of the accident. Which video or videos did you review?
I reviewed a video that was presented to Robeson Forensics as part of the inquiry. It was not near as detailed as the one you just showed me, but I believe it was from the field house angle. It more reflected the first one that you tried to show.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Before today, had you ever seen the video from the school bus that we just looked at, plaintiff's exhibit 2?
I do not believe so. It was very clear.
Is plaintiff's exhibit 2 something that you would have liked to have seen before today?
I was capable of isolating most of that from the first video by just not playing it fast and playing it in frames. So it was clear, but I don't really think it would have just been easier, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then so item number 2 says you reviewed the Paulding County High School Student Handbook.
That is correct.
Do you have that? Can you pull that up and show us what document you reviewed?
Okay. I'm in uncharted grounds, just so you know. Let's see if I can it is. Can you see that?
Cannot. Are you familiar with the share screen?
Well, I'm going to learn. How about that?
So at the bottom of the screen, the Zoom screen, there should be a green logo with like an arrow that says share screen. And that should enable you to pull up and show us the document that you reviewed.
I see it. And can you see it now?
No.
We still just-
Okay, that's okay. Just hang loose a minute. So I see the share screen.
Mhm.
I clicked on it and it's green. And then I went over to the 22-23 PCHS student handbook and clicked on that, but you can't see it, right?
Do you have two monitors?
No.
Okay.
Hmm.
Let's try this. I think I have what you reviewed. I just wanted to give me a second.
Can I ship it to you?
I think he's gonna show it to you and then you can,
Okay,
we'll figure this out. I can see it in the reflection of your glasses.
yes.
Alrighty.
I was wondering,
Is sorry, my Zoom is being very slow today.
It's there.
Okay, can you see the
I see it. That's it.
this is the document you
This is
reviewed?
this is the document. That is correct.
Okay, and you know that the collision in this case happened at North Paulding High School, correct?
Yes, but I received this handbook, so I have no way of distinguishing between.
Mhm. Do you understand that Paulding County High School is different from North Paulding High School?
Yes, it's a very similar situation as to what I was employed in.
Mhm. And do you understand that the handbook for Paulding County High School does not apply to North Paulding High School?
I did not. In our district, for example, they're both the same. They just have different names. So that would be an assumption on my part. That could be an error.
Okay. Have you reviewed the actual handbook for North Paulding?
I did not receive that.
Can you just generally tell me? I mean, it's a long document, so you don't need to tell me everything that's in it, but generally, what would you find in a handbook for a high school?
A typical handbook talks about the policies and procedures that students follow. Sometimes it's a student and staff handbook. It's a combination piece. If it's not, generally the staff handbook is a reflection of what needs to be done on the campus and correlates well, if you will, with the student handbook.
Mhm.
So it encompasses everything from bell schedules to extracurricular activities to code of conduct, absenteeism, suspension, expulsion, etc. It turns out to be a very thick novel over time.
Mhm. And your role in this case was to review the adequacy of the policies and procedures, correct?
Yeah, I was looking for pieces of the puzzle that apply to arrival and dismissal times, what type of schedule they had, very simple things. It was in that handbook that I noticed they had policies and procedures related to student parking and driving in the school system.
Mhm.
Excuse me.
So do you think it would be helpful for you to review the policies and procedures regarding parking and student driving for the actual school that we're looking at in this case?
It could. It could.
All right. Item number 3 on the list says you reviewed an aerial view of Paulding campus.
Yes.
Was the aerial view that you reviewed of Paulding County High School or North Paulding High School?
It showed the entire campus, to be clear. Ooh, look at that. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay,
And my purpose was to see the complexity of what I was reviewing.
okay. Hey, would you mind holding that up again, and rotating
Is
it?
it upside down? I think it's
I
upside
believe
down.
so. And if you could,
How's that?
if you could hold it back a little bit, just so we can see, and so, and up like maybe 4 inches. Okay, all right. Thank you. And then item number 4 has several MP4 files.
I can no longer access them. I believe they were photos that were smaller in version than what I had in that map. Quite frankly, it was so long ago, I listed them, but I can no longer access them. I don't know if they didn't transfer over correctly on my computer, but I wanted to list them because I did see them.
Okay, did you form any of your opinions in this case based on the items listed in number 4?
No.
Okay. And then it looks like you reviewed some depositions of school administrators.
Yes.
All right. And did you read each of, it looks like there, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 deposition transcripts. Did you read each of those in their entirety?
Yes.
Did you take notes or summaries of those depositions?
I made mental notes, if you will. I didn't create any quite summary. There were statements that were made that were pertinent to what I was looking for.
Okay, so you read all 6 of those depositions without creating any written notes.
Not really, other than other than my findings. All individuals were very clear in their testimony, and very professional.
Okay. Did you review the deposition of either plaintiffs or defendants, accident reconstructionist?
No.
Why not?
I strictly reviewed what administration and teachers had to say about the day in question.
Okay. And then I think you answered this, but did you review any document that mentioned the speed that Isabella Field was driving?
Actually, in a sense, I did, because it was one of the questions that was asked to some of the folks whose depositions I took.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any recollection of the speed that you saw, if at all?
I believe the attorney asked the question, well, wasn't the speed limit 10 miles per hour? Something to that effect.
But you don't have any specific recollection of testimony about the speed that Isabella Field was driving?
I didn't extract that from the depositions of those individuals, teachers and administrators.
Okay. Would you agree that even if there had been a crossing guard at the crosswalk in question, a driver going too fast could still be a danger to pedestrians?
Objection, but you can answer.
I want to carefully answer this because there were no guards. And there's no culture there to indicate that people are stopping at crosswalks.
Okay, so that does, so my question is do you agree that even if there had been a crossing guard at that intersection, that a driver going too fast could still present a danger to a pedestrian?
There's no way for me to foresee that.
Okay. So you just, I think you testified a second ago that you said, quote, "There's no culture there to indicate that people are stopping at crosswalks," end quote. Explain to me what you mean by that.
In the previous video, the video that I looked at, it's a very chaotic dismissal. Students are everywhere. They're crossing in crosswalks, they're crossing in the middle of the road, they're crossing off of sidewalks. There doesn't seem to be a protocol there to enforce crossing in the crosswalks. And it doesn't seem to be protocol for everyone to stop at the crosswalk either. So, and that I view from the video.
So how long was the video that you watched?
I watched the first one that you showed. Shows all the students pretty much crossing to and from while the buses are lining up, getting ready to depart. It's a pretty crowded situation for the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. How long was the video that you watched?
I don't know. I didn't keep track of that.
You have access to your file right now?
Hang loose. You're gonna have to hang out again. Sorry.
No worries. We've got 7 hours for a deposition in Georgia. We won't take 7 hours then.
I hope not.
Hmm.
Although I've had one that long. Oh, alrighty then. I can't move it and I can't open it, and I don't know if it's because I'm doing something wrong at this point. Yeah, it won't allow me to open it. I apologize. This is a rough go. Attorney Deedle, it's the RHP-law box video. I don't know if that makes a difference. I believe I must have saved it incorrect. I think I saved these incorrectly, and I apologize for that. But I think that's also the reason why I can't access them this morning. It says video presented to Robeson. I can select to turn on nearby sharing, but I can't open it.
I can tell you which videos we sent back in February if you want. I don't know if you want that to come from me or what. But the way it worked,
I can't open it at all, just so.
we had to send a link to Robeson, so I'm not sure that Joanne even was the one that handled it in the first place.
I just want to know the length of the video that she watched.
So she had both the long and the short Fieldhouse video. So there's a 14-second clip, I believe, and then there's, hold on, I can tell you. Of course, now it's not opening up on my screen. Hold on.
Is it labeled?
Hold on. Okay, so the one, let's see.
Because I seem to have the label, but I can't open it.
So Matt, it's the exact one that you opened up that says up in the upper corner, 49F hex dash front. It's the long version from the Fieldhouse. That's what she was saying before. It was the one that you started to pull up that was playing really weird. It was like jumping around and then it like went all pixelated.
Okay. Well, Mr. Auntie, did you watch the long clip or the 14-second clip?
I believe I saw both the very first time.
Okay. And the long clip, it was under 30 minutes in length, correct?
Yes.
Under 20 minutes in length?
Yes.
Under 10 minutes in
I
length?
think so. Yes. It was very short, but very clear.
Very short, but very clear. Okay. So I guess then my question for you is based on this very short video that you watched, how can you say that there's, quote, no culture there to indicate that people are stopping at crosswalks, end quote?
I'm gonna object to the mischaracterization of her testimony, but you can go ahead and answer.
I literally just read from the transcript of what she said, so, but go ahead.
That is correct. What I'm looking for in a school environment at the end of the day is organization. And this video does not depict organization that is expected, or I should say, should be going on at the end of the school day. I guess for the average person, maybe students hanging out is okay. Students doing crosswalks, okay. Students crossing a parking lot, not okay. So I was looking for people in place that protected students from areas that they shouldn't be and or should be.
Mhm.
And that video does not project that. And sadly, someone got hit.
Mhm. Okay, so thank you for that. My question is based on the very short video that you watched, how are you able to say that there's, quote, no culture there to indicate that people are stopping at crosswalks, end quote?
Well, one of the things that I picked up from that video, and that it really comes from experience, more so, generally at the end of the day, not just my school, not just this school, many schools contain their buses in place for dismissal. And it is rare, if practically not at all, that other traffic is moving at the same time. In this case, students were not in place in any one location, but the buses were being dismissed. I didn't feel strongly about the way the bus departure occurred, with a lot of activity all over the place. Usually, and for the most part, most administrators secure their parking lot specifically for bus departure and safety of students.
So I think there may be a miscommunication. So let's break down the piece of testimony that I'm asking you about. You said there's no culture there to indicate that people are stopping at crosswalks. When you say there, is it fair to say that you're referring to North Paulding High School?
And the incident area.
Okay. And then when you say people, there's no no culture there to so strike that. Sorry.
Maybe culture is not the right word.
Mm.
Maybe the activity seen
Mhm.
on the video indicates that there's no protective measures in place and students are walking everywhere.
So my question is when you're talking about people stopping at crosswalks, are you talking about vehicles stopping for the crosswalk? What are you talking about?
I'm talking about, you talked about stopping at crosswalks. I'm talking about children being everywhere, not
No.
necessarily stopping at crosswalks. But that video shows students walking on the pavement,
Mhm.
walking at crosswalks, and walking in the middle of the tarred road.
Mhm.
So
I know.
to me, that implies that there's no sense of direction as to exactly where it is those children should be walking.
Okay, and I'll just object to the non-responsiveness of the answer. The question is based on a piece of testimony that you just gave a minute ago, which is, quote, there's no culture there to indicate that people are stopping at crosswalks. What did you mean by people stopping at crosswalks? Are you talking about vehicles stopping at crosswalks or pedestrians stopping? Like who are you talking about?
Well, I don't have a visibility on cars coming through other than the vehicle that hit the child. But even the child that was hit did not stop at that crosswalk. She kept right on going in between the buses. So no one is stopping at the crosswalk. And when you see the students coming down, or maybe it's like going up the steps there in that video, you could see that they are really exiting or going towards wherever they have to go. They're not really stopping before they go. They just go.
Mhm.
Maybe that helps clarify what I said.
Not really. So when you said no one is stopping at the crosswalk, were you referring to vehicles or pedestrians?
I think I'm still responding to students because I did say earlier that I have no visual on cars coming through other than the driver of the car that hit the child.
So is it fair to say that you have no basis for saying that there is a culture to indicate that drivers are not stopping at the crosswalk?
Can't speak to the driver. The only driver that came through at that crosswalk period on that video was the person who was driving the car that hit the child. Can speak to the students that are walking in and around the buses prior to the buses departing.
Okay, and we're not talking about them right now. We're talking about.
But you're talking about the crosswalk, and they're coming across the crosswalk, and they're also coming across the pavements, and they're also coming across the tar surface. And if you'd like, you could pull that video back up, and we could go over it step by step.
Okay, object to the responsiveness of the question, or the answer, I mean. Okay. Can you, looks like it's loading. Can you see Plaintiff's Exhibit 710.2?
Yes.
And does this document show all of the resources that you relied on?
Yes, and a point of clarity, the National Association of Secondary School Principals, I've itemized safe schools and I've itemized community care and support for students. It's a rather large document with all the standards and regulations that are required by administration.
Okay.
And
So
it's now online. One time it wasn't. So.
Okay, so there are no documents that are not listed on this exhibit that you relied on informing your opinions.
Well, the documents lie within the documents. They lie within the NASSP, National Association of Secondary School Principals website, in the sense that they have documents that you can highlight related to community care and support for students and the standards that are required.
Okay.
And the number one standard here, so that you understand, is very global, and it's really about school safety. And it rests on the principal and the assistant principals, or administration, if you will, regarding the operations of the school.
Okay. What specific part let's go through these individually. The first item listed, professional standards for educational leaders, 2015 standards 5. What exact part of that document forms the basis of your opinions?
Well, it's kind of multi-tiered, just so you know. The first one, and I have the document in front of me, and I believe I also sent it on to you, which is standard 5. Community care and support for students. Letter A says, build and maintain a safe, caring, and healthy school environment that meets the academic, social, emotional, and physical needs of each student. Letter B says, create and sustain a school environment in which each student is known, accepted, and valued, respected, cared for, and encouraged to be an active, responsible member of the school community. So what it does is it pulls like a global view of safety. And there are other standards that aren't included here per se, that basically label the principal as the operational person in charge. And, that role has long been expanded to include many things. But the key word here is build and maintain a safe school environment. And that means in the building, outside the building, in the walkways, in the driveways, in every area that is incorporated by that school system. And as many of you know, today that role has become bigger. So it's a standard of practice that has to be followed, a standard of care, if you will.
And I pulled this document up, and you can see it.
Yes.
And it's a single page, correct?
Yes, because I honed it on standard 5. While there are many standards, like standard 7, I didn't pull up, but it also talks about safety. But most of the standards that have been revised in this document now go in a couple of ways, and the biggest way is core education and curriculum development. And loosely fitted is the principal's role as the operational manager to maintain a safe environment, and it falls under standard 5.
And did you review or do you rely on standard 7 in forming your opinions?
I have in the past, but it doesn't really. It wasn't really necessary for this case. I've used it in the past where it involved one-on-one physical contact between children and or adults.
So all I'm asking about is this case.
Yeah, this case, I just relied on this.
Okay. And you'd agree with me that standard 5 literally has no reference to the word crosswalk in it, correct?
That is correct.
And it's a pretty general statement of you use the phrase standard of care, but it's a pretty general statement of what schools should do, right?
That is correct. In fact, all of the NASSP standards are extremely general, just as you see here.
Okay.
But serve as an expectation to the administrator in charge.
Okay. So the second document item that you have listed, the NASSP item.
Safe Schools 2018.
What exact parts of that did you rely on to form your opinion?
I believe I sent that copy as well. It should be in a Word document. It's a framework for safe and successful schools provided by the NASSP.
So is this single page document that we're looking at the document that you're referring to?
Yes, that's it.
Can you point me to the part of this document that mentions crosswalks?
There will not be a mention of crosswalk, but the point that is mentioned is secure access points to school grounds and school buildings.
Mhm. What does that mean to you?
To me, that means while the buses were, to me, I'm going to tell you what it means to me with regard to this case.
Mhm.
Would that be clear for you?
Sure.
Okay. So for me, what that means is you have a busing situation where buses are being dismissed. It is the responsibility of administration to secure access points to the busing and also points of leaving. And it also secures the points in which people are coming into the property. So a secure access point means, to me, as the principal, I would have blocked every situation in this campus to make sure that the only thing that was going on at that time period was the release of students to their appropriate locations, the loading of buses, and the dismissal of those buses. It is not unusual for an administrator to block off a parking lot during that period of time. So when I see secure access points to school grounds and school buildings, I say to myself, who are we allowing in on to this campus at this point?
Mhm.
And that was a major highlight for me, especially in light of safe and successful schools. We're now at the end of the day at dismissal. In my mind, the only things that should be going on at dismissal are, and especially in this case, students reporting to their buses for dismissal, students reporting to their parked cars in the student parking lot. We have students going to the special needs area. We have students meeting their parents at the parent pickup location. And then we have the fifth group, which was highly impacted by that particular day. And those are the students that stay after school for extracurricular activities and athletic events. So the administrator's responsibility was securing access points to school grounds and school buildings is the first highlight here, because I have to secure as an administrator the entire grounds to make sure the safety of those students going to those locations is occurring at that time.
Mhm. So there, one thing caught my attention. You said, quote, "It is not unusual for an administrator to block off a parking lot during that period of time," end quote.
That's correct.
So is it your testimony that whenever a school administrator does not block off the parking lot, that is a deviation from the standard of care?
I'm going to qualify that for you, and I believe you'll understand this. We have so many schools across the United States. They are all unique in their own way. My school, for example, sat in the heart of the city. My students were released to a bus platform that bordered a highway. So I had other reasons to be precautious, obviously, because I had a lot of traffic on the streets on both sides. Some campuses are contained in rural areas. Some are standalone buildings. For example, in New York City, first 2 floors might be a school. They all depart differently. Because they all depart differently, which is what I was referring back to the culture, it is the requirement of the administrator to make sure all the students are released safely. And that component that is created to keep those children safe is created by the individual administrative team working on their operations at that school. It is not unusual to block a parking lot. Because we have control over a parking lot, we have control over the roadways in our campuses. We can put up barricades. We can put people at locations to stop cars from entering. So securing the access points to me and blocking what you need to block on a campus to make sure those students are safe is a top priority.
Okay, a few follow-up questions to that. Is North Paulding High School in a rural area or a metropolitan area?
I would consider what I was in a metropolitan area. I would consider this to be slightly more rural by virtue of the way it's located on the campus and surrounded by fields and woods. I view the campus more, now granted, also from an aerial view and pictures that I Googled it, okay, but I view it more like our sister school was. We had a campus set in suburbia. It's set back. It had high school, middle school, Votech building, some other buildings, bus loading area, bus transportation area, ed center. We were the older school we set in the city. So I view that concept of the contained campus very different from the environment that I had to control. So I would say rural to suburbia on this one.
Okay. The next question. So in this particular case, as to North Paulding High School, is it your testimony that the failure to block off the parking lot during dismissal deviated from the standard of care or industry standard, or however, whatever phrase you would like to use?
I didn't understand your first few words. You said fair. I hate to ask you to repeat that, but.
Sure, no problem. So is it your testimony that the failure to
Oh,
block?
failure. Okay, got it. All right.
Is it your testimony that the failure to block off the parking lot during dismissal deviated from the standard of care or industry standard, or whatever phrase you would like to use?
I would say standard of care for education, education operations.
Okay, and so is it your testimony that the failure to block off the parking lot violated the standard of care for an educational institution?
Yes, and I'd like to clarify that block further, if I may.
Sure, please do.
It doesn't have to be a barricade. It can be someone at the point of blocking saying, where are you going? And I'm going to qualify that. I placed a hall monitor at the top of the parking lot before entrance. When they came into our parking lot, they had 3 ways to go. Okay. What is your business here today? I am here for a parent conference. Okay, you must make a left. What is your business here today? I am here for an athletic event. You're going to have to hold. We're not letting anybody in at this time. There are processes and procedures that can be embedded and the individuals there have to be trained to that extent. It's not just drop a body there.
Mhm.
They have to be trained to that extent. But you take into consideration your entire map, and what you would do and which way students are walking to keep them safe. So I want to be careful of the word blockade or barricade, because you're not stopping the world from coming into the school. You're selecting how they're coming into the school and if they're coming in at that particular time.
Okay, so using the definition of block that you just gave, is it your testimony that in any rural or suburban school that doesn't block off the parking lot during dismissal, that's a deviation or violation of the standard of care?
I would say yes, and I want to clarify it still further. Blocking off means blocking off the area in which the children are getting to where they're going next. Whether it be the bus, the parent drop off, the athletic fields, that little brief period of time, which happens quickly at the end of the day once the bell rings. But it's also the most highly trafficked area at the end of the day as well. It does deviate from the standard of care if you do not have protective pieces in place.
Okay.
And if that includes blocking it off, then that includes blocking it off.
So I guess your response to that question kind of undoes the first part. So my specific question is, does not having that blocked, does not having a parking lot blocked off equal a violation of the standard of care if there are students in that area?
I would say yes.
Okay. And then now we've gone off track, back to resources. All right, so we've covered the first 2 items on plaintiff's exhibit 710.2. The third item you have listed, can you tell me the exact part of that document that you relied on in forming your opinions?
Yes, one of the things that occurs, do you have that in front of you? I did send it to you. It says, keep calm and carry on school, improving arrival and dismissal for walking and biking.
Can you see the document on my?
Yes, that's it. That is it. Correct. That is it. If you go to page 4. Good, thank you. Where it says best practices and consideration for on-site vehicle drop-off and pickup areas.
Mhm.
This is the most important person. The whole article is important, okay? But the most important thing that occurs at the end of the day is the school release and the hustle and bustle of 20, in this case, like 2,300 students. I had 2,800, of which over 1,400 were walkers in my experience. The school layout plays obviously a major role on what the administration can and cannot do. But one of the biggest pieces of the puzzle that has to be addressed are all the walkers at the end of the day. And in this particular case, we have students walking, not so much walking home as this article describes, but walking to and from locations that are not exactly at the front door. So what I was looking for here is to show that you have to have these pieces of the puzzle in place. And you know already that this school has many of these things in place. They do have a school layout that provides paths for students, okay? They do have a separate drop-off and pickup areas, parking lots, and bus loading areas. But take a look at some of the things that I don't see on the video. Use cones or signage to let parents know to not enter the parking lot or bus area, or use people to let them know. So this was the type of thing that I was looking at in this bigger picture of the school system. And if you keep following down here, vehicles should move through the drop-off and pickup area counterclockwise. Well, they're referring to the drawing there, but each school has a different drawing. And so it's important for this particular school to provide that information, and they do. I believe I saw that in one of the buses all go out one loop, so that's happening. That type of stuff is happening. But what I don't see is if you go through all of this, what I don't see is the bodies of people that are trained, including the students, to follow specific things, because the pickup at the end of the day and everything about the end of the day is chaotic. By nature, everybody runs out the door. They're out of here. They're going to where they want to be. They want to go to the next piece, you know. But the school itself kind of followed these things, but there doesn't seem to be like stopgaps that prevent some of this stuff. Like a vehicle should move through the drop-off and pickup area, which is the highlighted piece that you have there, led me to believe that the car that was driven by the student who hit the student probably should not have been in that area. And the only way to stop that is through administration having a plan to make sure that that type of stuff doesn't happen. And we could do that all the way across all of these items, because you can come up with a solution for every item as it pertains to the school that you are in charge of. Mm-hmm. Because it would be different for everybody by virtue of the layout of all the schools and their parking lots and their locations. And but the walker is the #1 priority in all of these situations. And we have walkers in this case coming in and out immediately. And what stunned me about this school was that they didn't have like a staggered dismissal. And it's a very large school, and maybe they've operated well over the years under this, but a staggered dismissal doesn't mean you're leaving every 15 minutes. It could mean something as small as leaving every 2 minutes, like wing number 1 gets dismissed at 3:30, wing number 2 gets dismissed at 3:33, and wing number 4 gets dismissed at 2:28. The staggered dismissal plan helps adults gather students out of the buildings in somewhat of a more organized fashion, if you will, and they're not all hitting the front of the building, entering the buses all at one time. So I was surprised to not see some of that, but this is a good example of highlighted items that the principal and the assistant principals would have to look at.
Okay, so I've got a bunch of stuff to ask about what you just said. Is it your testimony that it is a violation of the standard of care to not have a staggered dismissal?
No. And I'm going to qualify that because it depends on the enrollment. It's not a requirement. It's just an option that's available.
Is it your opinion that it is a violation of the standard of care for North Paulding High School to have not had a staggered dismissal?
No.
Okay. So the document we just looked at lists best practices for dropping off and picking up. Fair?
Yes.
Is it your testimony that the best practices are required to comply with the standard of care?
I would say for the most part, in terms of child safety, yes.
So if a school does not comply with any one of these items or best practices, then that is a violation of the standard of care, in your opinion?
Yes.
Okay, and then is it strike that. Have you reviewed you see that I guess we were looking at a drawing in that document sort of directing the flow of traffic. Have you seen a drawing similar to that for North Paulding High School?
It was explained to me. I think Marisa explained to me how the buses were released, because you could tell from the video that the buses are occupying a lane. I mean, it looks pretty coordinated.
Okay. So you said that there should have been a rule that prohibited the driver, Miss Field, from being in that area. Do you have any understanding of whether there was a rule in place that prohibited her from being in that area?
I do not have a rule in place, and I don't think you're going to find a rule in place in any of the documents or any of the research. I believe very strongly, and it is used in many campuses, that when the buses are being loaded and the buses are being released, no one is in that area.
Mhm.
And it is strictly for the purposes of safety, and the design is strictly by the principal and administration in charge.
So it's your testimony that North Paulding High School did not have a rule prohibiting student drivers from entering that area during dismissal?
I believe not, based on what I saw.
And to be clear, you did not read the handbook for this specific high school, correct?
That is correct.
You reviewed the handbook
The
for
one
a
that-
different
the one-
high school.
That is correct.
Okay. If there were a rule that said that students should not be in that area, how does that change your opinions?
Well, it would tell me that that the school district took the time to make sure that no other vehicles of any type were in the area where students are being dismissed, which would up the standard of care on their part.
At the beginning of your response to, we've been discussing a bunch of aspects of this document, but at the very beginning, you'd mentioned that North Paulding High School has many of these best practices in place.
They do. And you can see it, and it came through the testimony of the principal. He indicates specific things. It came through the testimony of the assistant principals, but in their same depositions, their weaknesses also came through.
Are you aware of any Georgia law that requires a school to have all of these best practices in place?
No,
Are you aware of a federal regulation that requires a school to have all of these best practices in place?
no,
Are you aware of any binding authority that says that if a school doesn't have all of these practices in place, they have violated the standard of care that they owe to students?
no.
So what is the basis of your opinion that not having any one of these best practices in place is a violation of the standard of care?
I want to be very clear here that principals were not trained, we're just not trained on the operations of what goes on in the management of a building. We are truly trained on curriculum, educational aspects, and the like. However, the caveat here for us is that safety component that's in the standards, and we are held responsible for the safety of the children. And we have to do what it takes within our boundaries to make sure that occurs. So it is incumbent upon the administrative staff, principal and team, to make sure that all safety precautions are taken, to make sure that all students are safe, arriving and leaving their school complex and attending school. It comes down to one sentence: we are to keep them safe. The how to really comes from the experience. And it's not an easy game for anyone, not the folks that were at this particular school or not any administrator out there, but it still remains our responsibility to keep them safe and to take all the necessary precautions. Amongst those necessary precautions are things that everyone has learned and we now consider best practices.
Okay, so is it fair to say then that the basis of your opinion that not having any one of these best practices in place sorry, that was a terrible question. Let me start that over. Is the sole basis of your opinion that not having any one of these best practices in place is a violation of the standard of care, your experience?
I would say yes. I need to take a break. I need to take a throat lozenge. That's so, if you don't mind.
Of course, yeah. And I should have mentioned at the beginning. Anytime
right.
we take a break, we can take a break.
That's okay. I just need to step out. That's all.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
10:15, does that work?
But
That
10 is,
works.
10 is fine.
All right. So I want to go back one more time to the materials, or sorry, wrong one. Resources. All right, so we've now gone through all three of these items on your resources list. As far as the third item, safe routes to school national partnership, you pointed me to the best practices list. Is there any other part of that third item that you relied on in forming your opinions?
I thought it was pretty well outlined on methodologies and things that have to be in place. So from testimony of the depositions, I extracted what wasn't in place, or what I felt wasn't in place at the time of the incident, that I felt strongly needed to be in place.
Okay, and so your opinions regarding what was in place is based purely on the testimony because you did not review the correct handbook, correct?
I'm not really sure, sir, if the handbook would have had a total role in what I was reviewing. Perhaps maybe if I saw a staff handbook, but I did not see a staff handbook.
Mhm. And you didn't see any handbook related to the school at issue in this case, fair?
Particularly, no, I would just what you saw in the materials reviewed.
And just, I think it was probably an issue with the way that I phrased that question. But you would agree that you have not read any handbook specific to North Paulding High School,
Just what I have listed.
and none of those are specific to North Paulding High School, correct?
Uh, it represents a generalization, but if there is one that's more specific, that's different within a district, then it makes a difference.
Mhm.
Usually in the same district, usually documents of this nature are pretty much title changes, name changes.
Mhm.
Um,
But you don't know that for sure.
And I
because
don't know
you
that for
didn't look at it.
sure. That is correct.
Okay. Can you see plaintiff's exhibit 5?
Stop moving it.
Is it visible to you now?
Yeah, it was, I'm gonna can I make it bigger? Or can you make it just a little bit bigger? It says that they would be towed. Okay, that's what I wanted to see. All right, that's it.
Okay, so can you generally tell me what we're looking at?
Speed limit sign,
And from a school safety perspective, what does speed limit mean?
not to exceed 15.
Okay, and so would it be fair to say then that the speed limit is the maximum speed that a driver should drive?
Yes,
Would you agree that driving above the posted speed limit on a school campus poses a risk to others?
yes,
Do you agree that Isabella Field should have been driving 15 miles an hour or less on the day of the collision?
yes,
Do you agree that in Georgia, a county board of education is not a legal entity capable of suing or being sued?
yes. That is the most for most cases.
Mhm. Do you agree that in Georgia, a high school itself is not a legal entity capable of suing or being sued?
I'm not sure I can answer that.
Well, let me ask it this way then. Do you agree that in Georgia, all suits must be brought against the school district?
Yes,
Excuse me. All right. Can you see plaintiff's exhibit 710.3?
yes.
And does this document outline your opinions in this case?
Yes.
Are there any opinions that you intend to offer at trial that are not included on this list?
I would say no, unless other information becomes available.
After today, do you intend to review the policy applicable to the school to determine whether your opinions have changed?
They would
Object
have to be,
form, but you can answer.
I'm sorry. I think we talked over each other.
So I'll just restate, Ms. Diddle had an objection. My question was, do you intend to review the policy applicable to North Paulding High School to determine whether your opinions change?
Same objection, but you can answer.
I haven't been presented with that information. If the parties that be decide that I should be presented with that information, then I would probably follow through and review it.
As a school safety expert who focuses on the policies and procedures of a school, would you like to see the policies and procedures of the school?
I would object to the form, but you can answer.
I guess the answer here is it has to be presented to me, and I would review it.
Would you agree that it is necessary for you to review the actual policies and procedures in order to opine on the policies and procedures?
I'm gonna object to the form, but you can answer.
I created an opinion here based on the information that I received. Getting new information could in fact change opinions. It would not change the three that I have listed there based on what I have seen and read.
And what you've seen and read being the depositions and the very short video on from one day.
Correct.
Okay. So will you please, we have three opinions here. Will you please read your first opinion?
Sure. Paulding County School District and its administration failed to take the necessary precautions to ensure a safe exit for students from their school facility by failing to place monitors in specific locations to assist student pedestrians walking on campus.
Okay. And do you have a copy of this in front of you?
I can.
I want to take it off the screen.
That's all right. I can. That's fine.
Oh, so I just kind of want to break that first one down. So just let me know when you're ready and take
I'm
it.
ready.
Okay. So you say that the Paulding County School District failed to, quote, place monitors in specific locations to assist student pedestrians walking on campus, end quote. What is a monitor in the context of your opinion?
Yes, I don't want it to be misconstrued by a hired monitor or safety precaution monitor type person. What I'm looking for here, what I was looking for, I believe Assistant Principal Speeney does this at the present time. She assigns duty stations from here out. In my conversation, I will call them as assigned. This is taking personnel from the school system and placing them in strategic places at dismissal point. Meaning, and it is happening already to a certain extent, but by their own admission, it's not happening to a point of clarity. You have individuals that were part of my deposition, were teachers and coaches. Their names slip, I don't have their exact names. They're on the depositions there that you have listed. They are teachers, coaches, former athletic director, a co-teacher. They've had as assigned duties, for example, period one, when the buses arrived. Some of them have duties like right outside the athletic portion of the campus. What I was looking for here, very specifically and very clearly, are personnel, assigning personnel to as assigned duties after school bus duty, for example, and or morning bus duty, where they have a specific responsibility. Principal Sellers, I believe his name was Bryce, right? Bryce Sellers is in charge of busing, according to the principal. And I was looking for specific things that he did for busing. But one of the big pieces to that is monitoring, and monitoring would have to come then from Speeney, who's in charge of duty stations, according to the principal. This is placing people on as assigned duty. So I was looking for information in their depositions that led to the idea that they put somebody at crosswalks, somebody in front of the athletic complex, somebody in front of the building, multiple people in front of the building if you're releasing 2,300 students, Multiple people at locations when people enter the complex, when people are leaving the complex. It's a fast moving 15 minutes right after school, but it's typical to put people in position to monitor all of the above, including the crosswalks.
Okay. Does a monitor need to be like an administrator or a school person?
No, the monitor can be any personnel designated by the administrator in charge of that duty. It can be and is not limited to, although most places don't use aides and the like, and I can explain that, but they usually use teachers. Some teachers have study halls, some teachers have homeroom duty, some teachers have cafeteria duty. These teachers would have bus duty. And this is typical practice.
Can it be another student?
No.
No. Okay. And then going back to the opinion, what are the specific locations at which you contend Paulding County School District should have placed monitors?
Everywhere where a child crosses, everywhere where a child is boarding. For example, it's really nice to have a monitor and or monitors that help the assistant principal, we know he's out there already, who's helping the assistant principal pull these kids into the proper buses. This particular assistant principal uses a very unusual way to determine, I mean, I'm not sure what he does by writing numbers down to buses that arrived. It was very confusing. By January, you should know all your buses. So, and you should know when they're arriving. You should be in communication with transportation authority, whether it's built-in transportation or outside transportation, because some school districts do contract, but you should be in communication with those people to make sure your buses are arriving at a specific time. The monitor then and or monitors can be there to make sure those children are boarding the appropriate buses. I mean, this is a hot area right after school. It's when fights happen. It's when disagreements occur. There should always be more than just an assistant principal out there. Now he does typical functions. He signals to the other guy that all the buses are loaded and now we're releasing them. But having those monitors there do specific pieces of the puzzle and are told what they need to do. You just can't just put them out there. So if you take a monitor and you put them at the various crosswalks, they need to know that they have to stop the children from crossing the crosswalk if vehicles are coming. And that includes buses still arriving. In this case, it would be the car that came through. Having monitors like, for example, right outside the athletic complex, they're taking in an inordinate amount of students at the end of the day who are participating in activities. So they would have specific duties. The monitors outside the special ed buses would have specific duties. The monitors in the parent parking lot would have specific duties. So they would have specific things that they're told to do. Amongst them, don't cross when the cars are coming, holding them back. We could list them as needed there.
Okay, so my question was really just what are the specific locations, which I think somewhere in there you said everywhere a child crosses. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and so do you contend then to comply with the standard of care, the school district should have placed monitors at every crosswalk on the campus?
Yes.
And in your opinion, is a school district that does not place monitors at every crosswalk on campus, is that a violation of the standard of care?
I would say yes.
Okay.
And size is playing a role here because you have 2,300 students going into 4 or 5 different places.
Sure. How many crosswalks are located on North Paulding High School's campus?
I don't know. I only know the one that I saw in the video.
You didn't think to count how many crosswalks there were?
No. And I'm going to clarify that. You have, I believe you have like special needs students being taken out of the building and placed on buses down by the baseball field. You have specific locations that were named by your principal. These are hot spots for monitors. So that's why I didn't get into the crosswalk piece. In my mind, these are hot spots that need an adult present with specific instructions. The key here is specific instructions. You could put anybody anywhere. And your assistant principal alluded to that. He said that there were women who were assigned to the special ed area, but all they did was chat.
Mhm.
So that's not what we're looking for here. Those women, if they're assigned there, should be monitoring, doing specific things. And the whole idea behind doing those specific things is to create the culture. You start this in September or whenever school starts, late August, and you carry it through so that by October, students know, Mr. Jones is at crosswalk number 1. Mrs. Smith is down by the baseball. I'm not getting past there. I have to listen to whatever he says to me every day. It becomes a regular pattern, a culture, if you will,
Mhm.
of habit. And that's, I was looking for that. What happened?
Can you see plans exhibit 711?
Yes,
And I'll represent to you that this is North Paulding High School. Do you see the yellow, red, not yellow, the red circles?
yes,
And those you see that those are crosswalks.
yes.
So is it your position that the district should have required a monitor to be placed at each of these crosswalks at dismissal?
Yes, and I want to clarify that specific to how they operate their parking lots, for example, as well. So if you look at the ones closest to the buildings are the ones that are really hot spots because that's where children are coming out of buildings, okay?
Mm.
Ones further down the end in the parking lot are leading to the roads, okay? If you have children walking, for example, I had said earlier, 1,500 students walking. I put people, for example, where those children had to cross the major arteries until city funding got us crossing guards. So you're looking at, if they don't have access to that, I didn't have, you don't, as an administrator, you don't have power over getting crossing guards and police. You get a certain amount of police protection, obviously, but you don't get the daily routine. We always have in major areas, like you would see at the 2 bottom there, where you're going to large areas like that, we actually have a police presence in our area, almost all the high schools now that lead out into a road. So you would have somebody there to guide those children across. For example, where I live, that high school has a policeman who not only pulls all the buses out at one time, but blocks all cars from going in and blocks all students from crossing over. It's a major highway. It's also a street, but it's part of the highway system. So, but the ones coming out the door are big definites because that's where they're rushing out the door. And if you have any cars coming around there, that's a problem. It's ideal to have them all the way down at the bottom where you have on your screen, but I don't know what that means in terms of traffic for you there, in terms of walkers. I don't know what the complexity of your system is on walkers. I don't have that broken down.
Okay. Is it a violation of the standard of care for the district to not place a monitor at each of the 4 circled crosswalks?
I would say yes. If you're protecting the students, you have to, you need an adult presence with instructions and training.
What about areas that don't have crosswalks, but are natural places to cross, such as this stair, not a stairwell, but the stairs right by the
Coming down, yeah. So here's something that would be a big consideration as an administrator. You are watching your traffic. You are watching how students dismiss from your building. Before renovations, we had over 170 doors at our building, for example, and after renovations, we consolidated a lot of them and you could not exit out of them anymore. They turned into windows. along with code violations, but you have to isolate as an administrator where your heavy traffic areas are to try to prevent that nonsense. And sometimes it means an indoor monitor who stops you from exiting that door. Our school is 2,800 students. This school's 2,300 students. 2,800 students, 1,500 of which were walking. I didn't have a student parking lot. They run out the door. They run out any door they want at the end of the day. So you have to create a culture that doesn't let that happen. And it means monitoring early on in the school, going over the rules in the handbook with them. Every principal everywhere in the United States goes over all the rules and procedures with students and good and bad behavior. This becomes part of that concept when you go over at the beginning of the school year with students where they can and cannot be released from. It's not necessarily a discipline issue, but it becomes a method to start the process to gear them either to the front of the building or to specific exits that you want them to go to.
Okay, so I want to sort of try to reconcile what I perceive to be a conflict between something you just said,
Okay.
and what you said a moment ago. So a moment ago, you said that it would be a violation of the standard of care for the district to not place a monitor at any one of these crosswalks.
Correct.
And so,
I'm referring to these specific crosswalks that you have on the diagram.
correct.
Okay.
And then a moment ago, you said that it is the job of an administrator to isolate heavy traffic areas. And
That is correct.
and then have a monitor in those heavy traffic areas.
That is correct.
So,
And in the sense that it becomes a preventative measure and you start a process, the administrator would start a process of possibly eliminating exit locations, especially if they're faced with staff issues that they don't have enough to cover. So that's the view I was taking when I said that.
So if an administrator were to determine, I'm about to ask a question about that top left crosswalk in the rear of the school. If an administrator were to determine that at dismissal, that left rear crosswalk was not a heavy traffic area, and made a judgment call to not place a monitor there, would that still be a violation of the standard of care?
I would say, yes. I would be looking more for them not to exit that area. Like if he made it a rule not to exit that area, and that would change the scenario.
Are there any other areas on this map that you contend that it would be a violation of the standard of care to not have a monitor, other than these 4 red circled crosswalks?
So can you see my arrow?
No.
I cannot.
Okay.
You have the ability to annotate this. There's a bar on the Zoom bar that has a little pencil icon that says annotate. And if you click on that, then it will enable you to draw your own circles.
Is that in the, where is that?
I don't see it.
Well, I can,
It doesn't.
I don't think we have that. I think you do.
Yeah, I think you're the only one that has that.
well,
It's okay.
if you can direct me to the location, then I can draw
Oh,
additional.
wait, hold on, Joanne, sorry. Now I need to get rid of it. I just did that. I don't know how to get rid of that, Matt. Okay, if you click on the screen, I did get in the bottom left corner, there was like a circle that showed a pencil. And when I clicked on that,
Aha, there it is.
there we go. Then the bar is up top that shows you. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I look at this, I see this area right here.
I'm not able to see your mouse. Like in order for you to annotate, I think you have to.
I'm coloring it.
Oh, there. Oh, yes. I see.
Okay.
Oh,
see
there it
that?
is. Yep.
Yeah, see that area? I mean, I'm just gonna throw this one out. I see a few more maybe, but if you take a look at that area where you have multiple ways in which a person can go, they have a rather large parking lot. In this particular case, my expectation would be that this parking lot is monitored in some fashion. So I'm going to broaden the statement here, because when I say some fashion, it could be a SRO, it could be a monitor, it could a teacher person, it could be a staff member, it could be an administrator, because you have things going crossways here, And then you have, oh, hold on, what happened here now? Oh, where'd it go? I lost the pen. Oh, I still have it. Never mind. Because you have, whenever you have stuff like this, and then you have stuff like this, you have so many different, I'm a terrible drawer, I apologize.
That's
You
all
have
right.
so many different ways here that people, students, staff could walk.
Mhm.
So this would be like a hotbed, if you will, or of a need, because you have so many different ways there. I mean, I don't want to count the parking spaces here, but for every car, there's a body, we'll say, that could walk and possibly walk around. So you want your traffic limited at dismissal. You want your traffic limited when people are walking out of these locations.
Mhm.
And that's the kind of stuff that I was looking at when I was listening, when I was reading their depositions.
Okay. And so if you will, please, now that we've got the annotation function figured out, will you please draw a circle around every area that you contend the school district was required to have a monitor, such that if they did not have a monitor there, it would be a violation of the standard of care?
Well, I'm kind of terrible at this, so let me just get this bigger
I don't
picture.
object to the form of the question and the request, but you do your best.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of terrible at this because I'm trying to figure out where was the field house here. Like this is the stadium / track. And I'm looking to see the bus area. I can't recognize the bus area from this.
So the field house is right. This is the red circle at the bottom of the screen that is furthest to the right is the crosswalk directly in front of the field house.
This one?
No,
I didn't think so.
This
the
one.
one you just highlighted.
Right there. Yes. Okay. Okay. So that means, just help me out here, just because I can't grasp it from here. Does that mean this was the bus area coming down
The buses were going
this way, coming down, right?
down where if you're, yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So that would be a hot spot because that's where your conjunction there is with other. It's multiple roads.
Mhm.
And look how I guess from an aerial view, it looks so far away, but think about how close it looks when you look at the video. Like the video doesn't give the impression that this is that far away, a building and a parking lot away. So you're really looking at proximity of kids coming straight down this way to get to that field house. That's a hot spot. That's a hot spot. And another hot spot for me, I think, let me try to, I don't know if I lost the pen. Okay, here you go. See this area right here, while it doesn't have a crosswalk and that's not operational. I mean, administrators work off the basis of what is given to us. We're not necessarily part of the operation. But as you can see here, this is a way to get down into the athletic area. This area here becomes a hot spot all the time because we know how many people participate in that. The amount of students who participate in athletics is grand at all schools. So these two areas, the one leading to that field house area and the one leading over to the athletic complex there, and even down as far as that, the baseball field right here, right? In that area. So even down to there, this becomes a hot spot too, because is this not the area where they're loading the special needs kits somewhere in here, down by the baseball field? These are hot spots that have to be monitored.
Okay. So just, I know that this is going to be a mess on the record. So let me,
A nice big yellow marker would have been nicer, but I guess I probably would have had that option. I'm kind of looking around here.
So I'm going to do orange stamps where I believe that you have said that a monitor would need to be placed. And if I'm incorrect, then just let me know.
Okay.
One monitor would need to be where that orange mark.
Yes, and you understand that concept, right? Because you have the parking lot, you got the buses coming out.
Sure.
Okay.
Another monitor would need to be placed where I just placed the next orange mark.
Correct.
And then another monitor would need to be where I just placed that next orange mark.
Right, and I believe you might have that in the special needs
Hmm.
people that were standing there, but I'm not sure.
And then another monitor would need to be placed at that orange mark.
Right.
Are there any other points on this overhead view of the school at which you contend the district was required to place a monitor?
Look at the bottom left here, that circle that you have on the bottom left.
Mm-hmm.
So see the two circles that you placed at the bottom?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's a little confusion with the one on the right, but there's no confusion for me for the one on the left. Are these entrance points into the entire system? Meaning you can, it looks like you can go, it's a bush covering it, but it looks like if you go to the one on the left, you can make a right and come around to the bus area.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like if you come up straight here on the one on the right, you can go right into the bus area.
Mm-hmm.
So if these two places bring in traffic during dismissal of all these kids coming out of this side, something needs to be there, either a barricade, cones, or cones in a body. For example, I did, because it was so hard for the gal to do the barricade at night after school, I had a female hall monitor there. In the morning, I had a male person there and the SRO was at the top. He had a barricade. He put a barricade up. No one got past that barricade unless they had business at the school when we were entering kids in the building. But at the end of the day, we just put cones up because it was easier. But you do it over and over again from September to, in this case, January, till the end of the year. It's a routine that everybody follows. The student drivers, the faculty drivers, the teachers, the walkers, the parents, they begin to follow a pattern by putting those people there. And that's what I was kind of looking for when I was reading the depositions.
Okay, so just for clarity, are you saying that there should be a monitor at the crosswalk and in that lane right there?
You see right here, if you have somebody stopping everybody, you can have an easier flow of traffic. Now in our area, we actually have outside policemen do that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's not the case everywhere. I could take you 30 miles up the road and that's not happening. They have a bot, they might have a body there, an administrator, a monitor, the SRO. Not every place has the affordability to have or the wherewithal to have a policeman stop the vehicles from coming in. But it's an option. These are options that are available, but I expected a certain amount of tightness here that I didn't see in the depositions.
Mm-hmm. Are there any other points on plaintiff's exhibit 711 that we need to place orange X's to indicate the necessity of having a monitor located there?
I think my X's, any other X's here at this point would be determined by where students would exit the building.
Okay.
I know that sounds broad, but coming from a person who had so many doors, I had a door on what is called Elizabeth Avenue. It's a major street. They ran out that door. So, you know, you have to know those doors, if you will. They're teenagers.
All right, so backing up, so we're looking at your opinion number 1 still. And you say that the district, quote, failed to take the necessary precautions to ensure a safe exit for students, end quote. Are you aware of any Georgia law that requires a school district to place a monitor at a crosswalk?
No. And that would be the same in Pennsylvania as well.
Are you aware of any federal regulation that requires a school district to place a monitor at a crosswalk?
No.
What is the basis of your first opinion?
Safety. The responsibility of safety lays on the shoulders of the administration.
So is your first opinion based solely on your experience as an administrator?
Both.
So you say both.
Knowledge of information of what I'm required to do and provide in that sense, plus experience.
Okay, so other than your personal knowledge and experience, what are you relying on for this opinion?
What
I
is,
object to the form. You can answer.
what is expected of me based on the standards,
What standards?
the national standards saying I have to keep students safe?
Is that something that we've looked at today?
Yes,
Which one is that?
letter A, standard 5.
Okay, so your bases for opinion number 1, standard 5, your experience and your knowledge.
Yes,
Anything else? Any other basis?
just mostly experience.
All right. Let me pull up the second opinion again, if you'll bear with me. All right. Looks like it's loading. Can you see plaintiff's exhibit 710.3?
I can.
Can you read your second opinion for me, please?
Sure, Paulding County School District and its administration failed to ensure the safety of the 2,300 students, approximate 2,300 students, by preventing vehicles from entering an area heavily trafficked by student pedestrians at dismissal.
Okay, and I'm gonna remove this, but we're still focusing on that opinion. So let's break that one down too. Is it fair to say that the crosswalk in front of the field house is an area heavily trafficked by student pedestrians at dismissal?
I would say yes.
And that's something that would have been evident to the administrators at North Paulding?
Yes,
And that would have been evident to students at North Paulding.
yes,
And Isabella Field should have known that that was a heavily trafficked area also then, right?
one would think, but I can't answer that for her.
Is it your position that the district shouldn't have allowed vehicles to drive on the stretch of road on which the collision happened during dismissal?
Yes,
Is there any Georgia law that requires a road closure, as you have suggested should have been done?
no. Point of clarity is that that road is sitting in the middle of the district campus.
Mhm.
So the district would be in charge of that road.
Okay. Is there any federal regulation that you're aware of that would have required the closure of that road? As you
No,
suggest? Okay, so what should the district have done to prevent traffic from going down that road? And let me add during dismissal specifically.
I think it was imperative and I think it was incumbent on the administrative team to make sure at bus loading and bus departure that no vehicles other than the departing buses should have been in that area
How should they have done that?
by stopping traffic from flowing into that area,
How should they have done that?
either by better use of their SRO. Having an administrator there doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be a teacher staff member monitor. But that would be the key: barricade using cones, making sure that no one got past them.
Is your opinion that not having a monitor at that road, at the entrance point of that road, violated the standard of care?
At the time the buses were loading, yes.
And not having a barricade there violated the standard of care?
Some type of barricade, because barricade is a very broad term to include cones and or people and or some schools use 2 poles and a chain. So yes.
Is it your position that any similarly situated school must have a barricade or monitor closing the flow of traffic in an area that school buses are leaving at dismissal.
Yes.
And so any school, any similarly situated school in the United States that does not have a monitor or barricade blocking the flow of traffic from the area that buses leave would be in violation of the standard of care.
Buses are loading more so than buses leaving, but buses are loading because that's when kids are out walking to and from.
So yes, then. So let me just, I'll re-ask the question.
Yeah.
So any similarly situated school in the United States that does not have a monitor or barricade blocking the flow of traffic from the area that buses are loading would be in violation of the standard of care.
Yes. Sorry about that.
That's okay. What is the basis of your second opinion?
Walking, pedestrians are the most important group of people in any of the safety precautions that are taken at the end of the day on a campus. At the end of the day, that is when it's the worst time period for all. The biggest concern is always another vehicle. Could be a vehicle driven by a parent, vehicle driven by a student. Children are rushing to get to their next location. For many of them, it's hurrah, I'm going home. For some, they're staying for a longer period of time because of events, but they're racing to their next location. Having them worry about cars and it's just not coming into their mind. And at that particular time, it's incumbent upon administration to make sure that everyone knows they need to walk in a crosswalk. Cars and vehicles need to stop at a crosswalk. When the buses are leaving, nobody's moving because there's a monitor at a crosswalk, making sure that no one's going through. There's a lot there that happens in a short period of time for safety.
Okay. And so I understand and appreciate that. What are the bases of your second opinion? Your knowledge, your experience, a specific document. What are you relying on to form the second opinion?
I would say knowledge, experience, and having to have fought for that necessary safety precautions in the building that I was in for many years. It's comprehensive. It requires all parties that are involved in the system to listen to the rules, participate, and act. Mm-hmm. And it's a very big task.
Sure. And so when it seems to me that the third item that you just listed really is just an extension of experience.
That is correct.
So the bases of your second opinion are your knowledge and experience.
Knowledge and experience.
No other bases.
It would still come under experience.
Okay. So sole bases are knowledge and experience.
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna pull up the opinion up again. You'll bear with me.
Sure.
All right. Will you please read your third opinion?
Sure. Paulding County School District and its administration failed to monitor students during dismissal and ensure their safety by placing them in harm's way by not enforcing walking requirements in crosswalk areas, sidewalks, and driveways.
Okay. So you say that the district failed to ensure student safety by, quote, not enforcing walking requirements in crosswalk areas, sidewalks, and driveways, end quote. What is the source of the walking requirement to which you refer?
The basis for this last opinion is based on the testimony of Assistant Principal Bryce Sellers and also the Assistant Principal Julie Speeney. Julie Speeney, by her own admission, said that after the accident, they all met together and realized they had a problem. And they pulled together and as assigned duty, well, she doesn't call it that, she calls duty stations, as assigned duty, In fact, now today, in her testimony, she is the person now in charge of that crosswalk. And through experience, and let me just say one other person, Bryce Sellers had two comments that were made that in his testimony that one alludes to the fact that people aren't doing their job or possibly not doing their job when he says that they're standing around and chatting, and special needs people who are aides generally are there because they have to load the buses of the students. So that was a little alarming. The other alarming portion of that was he didn't know what to do when the accident occurred, which really left me besides myself. But together, they are part of an administrative team, and Speeney admits that they pulled the whole administrative team together after that and realized that they had to do something. And now she is now the as assigned person at that bus crossing, that crosswalk.
Okay, and so I think that answers a question, but not the question that I asked. So my question for you is what is the source of the walking requirement, or phrased differently, what is the walking requirement to which you refer?
Well, I'm referring to the fact that she said that she thought she needed somebody there, and I'm alluding to that being the requirement.
Your opinion says that the district failed to enforce walking requirements. What walking requirement did they fail to enforce?
Well, sorry about that. Assistant Principal Speeney said that she realized that there was no one stopping anybody at the walking requirement. I'd have to pull her full deposition up to give you the exact wording. But that is what led me to the opinion that there was or possibly was the idea that students were required to walk in the crosswalks. But that didn't mean they were required to stop. There was no one there to guard them for their next action, their children.
Have you read any testimony that specifically says that pedestrian or students must walk in the crosswalk?
No, just that it seemed to be implied by her testimony.
Okay. Does the student handbook that you read, which we know is not the student handbook for this school, but does the student handbook that you read mention anything about a walking requirement in crosswalks?
I didn't see that, which leads me back to what the culture is if trained.
I'm not sure I follow that. What do you mean by that?
If teachers and administrators go over the student handbook with their students and they tell them the expectations at the beginning of the year, and they review as part of that expectation what is expected of them when leaving the building, navigating the campus, and they enforce it through the use of the monitors, you have a culture that is created by daily routine.
Okay. Well, are you aware of any Georgia law that requires a person to walk in a crosswalk?
I have to think it's the same. Like we're asked to, we get fined if we don't walk in a crosswalk in our area.
Not my question. Are you aware of a Georgia law?
No.
So you are not aware of a Georgia law that requires a person to walk in a crosswalk?
No, but I am aware of cars that have to stop at a crosswalk. And I can't speak to that either because I'm in Pennsylvania.
Are you aware of any federal regulation that requires a person to walk in a crosswalk?
No.
All right. So the student handbook does not mention anything about requiring walking in crosswalk.
Well, you indicated that I do not have the right one, so I don't want to answer that now.
Well, the student handbook that you reviewed.
No, it doesn't. Yeah.
So the sole basis of this walking requirement is something that you deduced from Miss Speeney's testimony?
Yes.
And she didn't explicitly testify that there was a requirement at all to walk.
No.
Okay. So What
The
is
other
basis of
person,
this opinion?
the other person that also alluded to this though was the coach that was there, the athletic director that was there. I think he's the athletic director now. He was a coach at the time. He holds all his students back before he walks them to the baseball field for practice. So there are some effective safety precautions taken by the staff, but they don't appear to be in stone. They don't appear to be ritual. They don't appear to be everyday events. And that's where I allude to the culture piece.
Mhm.
And he holds the students back on the sidewalk till all the buses leave. So we have activity going on for the safety of the students.
What are the bases of your third opinion?
The bases of my third opinion, their failure to monitor students. I have no way of knowing the exact routine that is followed with regard to placing monitors and staff members in an area to protect the students.
I'm sorry, you said you have no way of knowing the exact.
Other than from the testimony that I received that Speeney's now is at that bus stop at the crosswalk, other than knowing that Sellers says that Speeney's now at that crosswalk, other than knowing that a coach waits to make sure the kids don't cross the roadway, other than small pieces of the puzzle, there's no definitive information here that they have a plan in place to protect students when they're leaving the building and departing buses.
Mhm. So are you basing your third opinion on what the school did after the collision?
Well, they admit that they didn't have it in place before.
So the basis of your third opinion are the admissions about what they did after the collision?
Yes, sort of, in part,
And then the other part being your knowledge.
and experience needed to be in place.
Okay, so just so to be comprehensive, so the bases of your third opinion are your knowledge, your experience, and then the admissions of the school administrators about actions they took after the collision.
Yes,
Okay. Your disclosure in this case says that you intend to rebut plaintiff's expert's testimony. Which of plaintiff's expert's testimony do you intend to rebut?
I haven't received any.
So you're not going to rebut the testimony of an accident reconstructionist or a human factors expert.
I'm not part of that.
So other than the three opinions that we just went through it at length, do you have any other opinions as to the school district?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Do you have any other opinions of things that the school district should have done and the failure to do them was a breach of the standard of care?
I think what they failed to do was what I said. I don't see any other I don't see any other thing that I could say deterrent to the school district.
Okay. Now, are the opinions that you state here and in the exhibit that we just reviewed, do those apply to the Paulding County Board of Education in any way?
Well, ultimately, they're responsible for the administration and the team that's hired. So I guess indirectly they would be.
So, but other than hiring the individuals who comprise the school district, do any of these opinions apply to the County Board of Education?
They're responsible for the people in their employ.
And do you know that the County Board of Education is issuing paychecks to the employees of the school district?
That depends on how it's laid out administratively in terms of who signs checks, et cetera, but they provide budgets and things like that, so I would have to go with yes.
Okay. Did you do anything to research the administrative organization of the school district?
I did pay close attention to the principal and what it is that he does. It's a job that I did. I paid close attention to the people who were doing specific jobs that he named in his testimony, which is like, for example, Sellers, the athletic director, Speeney. Those are all jobs that I have done in my career. So I was very familiar with the layout and the structure of what he was portraying in his deposition.
Okay, so other than reading the depositions, did you do anything to research the administrative organization of Paulding County School District?
No, because I felt very strongly that the high school was pretty much relevant to what everybody's doing. Everybody has a specific job and a specific job description as an assistant, and the principal is in charge of the overall operation. So I was very comfortable with what I read.
Did you do anything to research the organizational interaction between the County Board of Education and the county school district?
No.
Let's take a quick bathroom break. Miss Durante.
Ranty.
I want to talk about your methodology, but I had written a note to ask and I forgot to ask it. When is the first time you viewed the video of the collision?
Hold on a second. I'm going to try to give you an exact date. I know it was on a run date because I was leaving for vacation. So I know it was in late February or mid-February, I think. I was not yet engaged by Robeson.
Okay.
It was part of the engagement process that I saw the video. I'm gonna say mid-February. Going by the date that I left for vacation. I remember it was the day before I was leaving for vacation.
Okay. So methodologies, and let me share the opinions. Can you see the plaintiff's exhibit with the opinions?
Yes.
What is your methodology for the first opinion?
I was caught off guard immediately by the fact that a car entered a parking lot while buses were departing.
So your methodology is that you were caught off guard?
Yes, because it's just not, when I first saw it, I want to preface this with, I just don't take cases. So when I saw that, I was stunned and could not believe that a car entered a parking lot while buses were departing. And my methodologies were based on historical practice and things that I have experienced, things that I have witnessed. That was just something that doesn't happen.
Okay.
So what I find is that other than things like safe routes to school and best practices, like you have said, looking for documentation is very difficult. So it does come down to experience. It also comes down to assistance of SROs and police officers that work with you. So my first thought process was that this was not in place in some fashion. I don't know what that fashion was. I don't know. It's just a video.
Okay, so is it fair then to say that your methodology for your first opinion was drawing upon your experiences as a principal?
Yes.
Okay. and this may make the day shorter, but is your methodology for your second and third opinion also drawing on your experience as a principal?
Yes, and past practices before me. Past practices that I think have evolved over time at local schools and districts that I am aware of. Because I believe this is about an internal management control feature operated by the principal and the assistant principals.
Mhm. And so by past practices before you, you're referring to now your knowledge of those past practices.
That would, yes, that were trained to me, if you will.
Okay. So
Go ahead.
so your methodology for all of your opinions, or I guess let's just, but we've already gotten one. Let's focus on number 2 and 3. Your methodology for opinions number 2 and 3 was drawing upon your experience and knowledge.
Yes.
Okay. And when I ask for what is your methodology, do you know what I mean by that?
I think I have to think that it means what research have you done? What is the basis for your opinions? Meaning like from your research that you've done in the past or other experiences. How did you make a comparison or analyze to that effect? And how it applies here.
Good. And sorry, I didn't mean to be rude. I just wanted to make sure we're on the same page. And let me pull up. I think that's the wrong. Sorry, give me a second. I just got your testimony list today. Yes, here we go. Can you see plaintiff's exhibit 710.4?
Yes.
And is this your complete testimony list?
For testimony, it is, yes.
And so have you ever testified as an expert before October 23rd, 2017?
As an expert? Was that your question?
As an expert, yes.
Yes, no.
So this exhibit that we're looking at, 710.4, includes every instance in which you've ever testified as an expert in either deposition or at trial.
That's correct.
Okay, and each of these, we'll actually strike that. We'll go through. Are there any cases on which you were retained but did not testify at all?
Many.
Approximately how many?
Maybe about 20 or so.
Okay.
However, required a report.
Mm-hmm. Now I'd like to, since the list is so small, I'd like to go through each of these. Normally I don't do that, but let's start with the Mata case. Tell me, what was the Mata case about?
Supervision and bullying.
What was exactly what was the nature of the claim?
Bullying.
So a student brought a claim against the school district for bullying.
Yes.
Were you retained by the school district or by the plaintiff?
School district.
And what was the gist of your opinion in or opinions in that case?
Basically, whether or not the school district followed the rules.
And so it looks like this was a trial in New York.
Yes.
What was the outcome of the trial?
School district lost. Did
you submit a written report in that case?
don't believe so. I think that was strictly testimony. Excuse me.
And did you review the policies and procedures of the school in that case?
Yes.
Was there a Daubert motion filed regarding your testimony in that case?
Not that I know of.
Are you familiar with Daubert standard?
Yes.
So your opinions in the Mata case were that the school had adequate policies and procedures regarding bullying and supervision?
Yes.
Okay. The SoCal case, what was that case about?
Well, that was a human resource case. I wrote a report and I had a deposition. Basically, that particular Board of Education should not have been included in this lawsuit. There was a couple of tiers. We were the lower tier. And they got thrown out. They didn't need to be part of this lawsuit.
What? How so?
They had no role in the incident that occurred to the individual they had hired after he left their district.
Was the plaintiff in the SoCal case a student or an administrator? Who was the plaintiff in that case?
It was an employee, and it involved an employee, and I represented the school district.
What were your opinions in that case?
I can't give you that.
Because you don't remember, or because it's confidential?
It's confidential.
And it looks like this case was in West Virginia.
Yes. And like I said, they were like really the third tier and were taken off the entire lawsuit then.
Okay.
Individual was hired by 3 different school districts over time. This was the first school district, had no impact.
Okay. Well, moving on. Oh, I guess were there any Daubert motions filed as to your testimony in that case?
Not that I know
of. The Eamon case, what was that about?
Injury to a special needs student.
What was the injury?
Was physically injured. The basis of the case was based on the IEP and whether or not the LEA acted appropriately.
And you were, excuse me, who retained you in that case?
I was retained by the injured parties.
And what were your opinions in that case?
Our opinions were thrown out. There were 2 sets. This was carried over during the pandemic, and the judge ordered settlement.
Okay. What when you say your opinions were thrown out?
Well, the judge stepped in and said, "This is it. We've had enough," type of thing. And it was during the pandemic, and it was at the peak of the pandemic when things were starting to happen, whether or not we could Zoom virtually or whatever. It got really technical, not things that I'm aware of, but the system took it out of our hands.
Okay. Do you have an order? Do you have the possession of an order excluding you from that case?
No, we have we just had a notice from the attorney telling us they received our reports and everything. They were read, but I'm sorry, no, we didn't do a report. I apologize. we did a deposition. They received that, and then the judge ordered them to negotiate, to mediate and come up with a solution.
Okay. Was the basis, did your qualifications as an expert have anything to do with your opinions being thrown out?
No, this was really about special ed rules for the most part, and the bigger part of this case was about the bus driver and our bus expert, not me.
Was the bus driver allowed to testify?
I don't know.
Were there any other experts' opinions thrown out other than yours?
They were read, but he just ordered us to negotiate. I guess throwing out was probably not the right word. We just never went any further from our end.
Okay. What about the Mackey case?
Yes,
What is that case about?
that is about inappropriate behavior of an educator within a classroom setting.
What sort of inappropriate behavior?
Inappropriate methodologies and inappropriate certification to teach.
So was there a physical injury in that lawsuit?
Not injury, but inappropriate handling.
Was there a sexual molestation in that?
No.
Yes.
No.
Who retained you in that case?
I was retained by the district.
And what were your opinions in that case?
I basically honed in on the teacher certification process and not being certified correctly at that point.
Okay. What about the leak case? What was that one about?
This was an injury that occurred in a vocational classroom by a substitute teacher allowing students to leave the classroom and go do something.
Oh, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's okay. She just allowed them to leave the classroom, and in so doing, the student got injured.
Do you remember the manner in which the student was injured?
And not so much the manner in which he was injured, as much as he was unsupervised.
Okay. So what were your opinions in that case?
She failed to do her job.
And I can't remember if you told me who retained you in the leak case.
The person who was injured.
Okay. And then the buoy case, what was that about?
This is a human resource case as well, about an individual who had been reassigned to another job and was not happy and sued the district. So I reported on behalf of the district and the policies that they followed in terms of reassigning a person a job and still maintaining a job. May not be the job she wanted, but still maintain the job.
So of your cases listed in this exhibit, only 3 of them involved personal injuries.
Yes.
Okay. Are there any cases in which you have testified between the last listed item and today?
I haven't testified to any other. I have written reports and addendums, affidavits, but not.
How many reports have you authored in 2023?
2023. So far this year, I've written 2, but they haven't been presented yet. They're not done.
Okay. In any of these cases, in any of the cases that you've testified in, were you opining on traffic policies related to the school?
I had another traffic case, but it never went to deposition and it never went to testimony. It regarded a student being hit in a parking lot by a vehicle. And it was very similar. However, there was police involvement when it occurred. So it was a little different. In the sense that the area was covered.
Who retained you in that case?
I was retained by the school system.
And I assume that your opinions in that case were that the school system had met its duties.
Yes.
What state was that case in?
New Jersey. I have to think, it was so long ago. New Jersey, I believe.
This was in 2023 though, right?
No. This was,
Oh, okay.
oh, I'm sorry. Did you say 2023?
Mm.
No, it wasn't 2023. I'm going to say it might have been around 2017 or 18.
Okay.
A long time ago. Sorry.
Other than this case that we're here today for, and then this other traffic case from 2017-ish.
I think it's somewhere in there, yeah.
Are there any other cases that you've been retained and opined on traffic related policies and procedures?
No, generally it's on supervision and methodologies of administrators.
Okay. What school was were you retained by in that case?
I want to tell you, it was Camden County School District in the state of New Jersey. It seems like to me so long ago. I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
I do not know the results of that case either. I was never informed. I don't know if they settled. And I think the education side wasn't the biggest component. The policeman and the security guard were. So
Do you remember which school within Camden County School District?
I do not. I know they're large because it's our neighboring state. It's
Is it safe to assume that it was a high school since there were students?
No, it wasn't. It was a school that had a playground, a daycare. I want to tell you, it was either elementary or middle.
Okay. Does Morgan Village Middle School ring a bell?
No,
Veterans Memorial Family School?
no,
Yorkshire Family School?
no,
Thomas H. Dudley Family School?
no,
Octavius V. Caddo Family School?
no. I looked up my list and all I have here is the Camden City School District. That's all I have. So it really is so long ago and my role was so minimal. I apologize for that.
What policies and procedures specifically were you reviewing in that case?
The role of the district. And it really, because of where the road was, if I recall correctly, and I'm not really sure, so I think it all fell on the city and not on the district. And I don't believe I wrote a report either for that case.
Okay.
So I think I might have just been consulted on it. I apologize. I really just don't remember, but I did work on it briefly.
No worries. Has any court ever ruled verbally or by written order that you were not qualified to testify as an expert about any subject?
Not that I know of.
Has any court ever ruled verbally or by written order that some testimony or some part of your testimony was not going to be admitted for any reason?
No,
Right. Are you certified to be a teacher in Georgia?
I'd have to look it up. I just did this. I have a lifetime certification as a teacher, and I interface with 3/4 of the states in Pennsylvania, and I would have to double check. The 3/4 of the states in the United States, rather. So I would have to double check to give you an accurate answer.
Okay. Do you have access to that information?
I do, not readily, but I have access to it. I know I'm certified for New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Massachusetts. I don't know. As I go south, I don't know. I'm still good in Virginia and West Virginia. I've been asked this question once before. I didn't check on Georgia, but that can be easily checked and get you that information.
Okay. Is this information you'd be able to get like if we take a break?
No, I actually send it to Robeson and they do all the work for it. It's not
Okay.
because they take your specific certification and put it in the system, and then, when they're looking for conflicts and things like that, they generally. The same holds true with our administrative certificate, but our administrative certificate is nationwide.
Okay. Do you have a Tier 2 Georgia Education Leadership Certificate?
No,
Have you ever taken the Georgia assessments for the Certification of Educators exam?
no. Interestingly enough, I was the writer of the teacher certificate exams in Pennsylvania. When they started doing that, I was grandfathered in. So I never had to take the test for the teaching certificate. I started becoming an administrator, and then when they did that one, I didn't have to take that test either because I was already in the role.
Mm-hmm. And that was not for Georgia, though. That's for
No, that was for Pennsylvania, but the certificate in administration that I have from Lehigh University is valid across the nation.
Okay. Have you ever taught in a Georgia school?
I have not.
Have you ever served as an administrator in a Georgia school?
I have not.
Have you received any training on Georgia's rules of the road?
No.
Have you received any training on Georgia laws as they relate to pedestrians?
No.
Have you ever prepared policies and procedures for a Georgia school?
No.
Have you ever enforced a school's policies and procedures in Georgia?
No.
Have you reviewed all of North Paulding High School's policies and procedures?
I did Paulding High School's procedures.
So not North Paulding, correct?
Correct.
Have you reviewed the policies and procedures of any other Georgia high school excluding Paulding County High School?
No.
To form your opinions in this case, did you speak with any Georgia school administrators?
No.
To form your opinions in this case, did you review any Georgia laws as they relate to Georgia schools?
Georgia has a pedestrian article out there that I did glance at, but it didn't serve my needs for this case, or what I thought would be applicable to my needs in this case, based on the fact that I did not work in Georgia schools.
Okay. Now, when you say a pedestrian article, we're not talking about a Georgia law.
Yeah, earlier law, it would be like a best practices type document, and it wasn't a safe schools one that's issued by the NASP. So,
okay. So to form your opinions in this case, you did not review any Georgia laws as they relate to Georgia schools.
That's correct.
Have you ever been to North Paulding High School?
No.
Have you ever been to Georgia?
Yes.
Where in Georgia?
I've gone through Georgia a couple times, many times. Atlanta, been to Atlanta, driven through it.
Have you ever visited Georgia?
Yes, Atlanta.
So you actually visited rather than just passing through?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Have you ever been to Paulding County?
No.
Okay. If you'll give me 5 minutes to flip through my notes, I think I should be done. Marisa, if you have questions, that you can go ahead.
I do have some. Hold on 1 second. Sorry, I wasn't. I allowed, yeah. All right, I'm gonna share my screen real quick. Wait, is that, wait. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Ranchi, I'm just gonna ask you, council's asked you a lot of questions about the Paulding County High School handbook that you received, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And what's on my screen, this is a copy of what you received, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And just so that we're clear for the record, this is a copy of the Paulding County High School Student Handbook for 2022-2023, correct?
Objection leading.
Okay. So there was no, well, let me ask you this. Did you review any document at all for any school that talks about the policies and procedures of that school?
Objection vague.
You mean other than Paulding County High School?
Well, in your experience, are there different policies and procedures for schools outside of the student handbook?
Objection leading.
Generally speaking, a student handbook provides all the information that's necessary for parents and students. A staff handbook correlates to the student handbook with respect to their duties towards that student and all the policies and standards that are in that book. So there is the student handbook has to be supervised and ruled by somebody, and those somebodies are the teachers and the administrators. So the staff side of a handbook generally has a good one, generally has all the necessary pieces to the puzzle that correlate with the rules and regulations that are provided for students. I don't know if that answers your question.
Okay.
And they're all similar. They're all very similar in nature.
There, in the testimony that you reviewed, well, I'll withdraw that. I'll move on to something else. You were not retained in this action, in this matter to review the actions of either of the students involved, correct?
Objection leading.
That's correct.
All right. And the opinions that you've provided today are based on the actions or inactions of the administrators, correct?
Objection leading.
The answer is yes.
And we talked a lot about your, or you talked a lot about how your education and training and experience is the basis for the opinions that you've provided today, correct?
Objection leading.
You can answer.
I did say yes. I think you just.
Okay. Oh, sorry, I couldn't hear
That's
it.
okay.
what are some of the things that comprise your education, training, and experience?
I spent 16 years as an administrator, as an assistant principal, and 2 years prior, I interned while I was teaching. And during my 16 years as an administrator, assistant principal, a variety of duties, very similar to how the principal of the school outlined in this case, where that assistant principal handled many duties. Over time, I handled bus duties, I handled security, I handled the SROs, I handled the monitors that were hired. And another time, I also handled the as assigned duties, similar to what Principal Spini did. It's a coordinated effort amongst administration. In a divided system like that, we all have duties and responsibilities. We collaborate, we return that information back to the principals. To the principal, we meet, and our coordinated efforts is what makes the security of the school work. After 16 years of being the assistant principal, I did it as the principal. And then I was overseeing what I didn't have the luxury of when I was an assistant principal. I had 4 assistant principals that I was part of. When I became the principal, we got very lucky, I guess you could say, and we added 2 more. I was involved in a high school that was upwards of, at any one point, 2,800 students. I supervised 303 staff, and I had 5 separate buildings sitting in the middle of the city and a stadium. It's an impossible task without the individuals that are involved. Everybody has a component. And when I was relating to this case, particularly this case, this principal had almost the same scenario. He has almost the same functioning, and he knows that he announced that in his deposition. And I saw side by side, they were very, very similar situations. The difference was I did sit in the middle of a city. So I was bounded on the east side by what were called streets, but that was actually a Pennsylvania route. And I had said earlier, I had over 170 doors to get out until we went through renovations, at which point we started consolidating. And we have not been a school without issues, and we have not been a school without incident. The side street that I alluded to in my testimony today, for me, had children running out, unlike in this case where they all ran to the student parking lot to get in their cars. We didn't have student parking in the city school. Our sister school, which is a complex in suburbia, did have a student parking lot, but we did not. So these teenagers were running out the door to get to their cars, and we had a student who was nudged. I'll say nudged for lack of better, to keep it simple. She was hit by a car, but she got lucky. And she was hit by a car outside the north side of our building from running out. We were forced, just like this school, to position somebody at that location. There's not going to be any running. We have a crosswalk there. There was always a crosswalk there. The difference for us was we had no control. That control fell on the city. When you're in suburbia and the roads are inside your complex, it makes it a little different because that control then falls on the school system. So I had to rely on the police, the city, and a lot of other resources to the left and right. When I was a teacher, I was at the sister school. I had parking lot duty on the teacher's parking lot. And my whole sole job was to make sure that student drivers didn't come across to the teacher's parking lot because they could. So this is a very live piece of operation that goes on in large schools. It's just something that, unfortunately, I don't feel in the books there's anything that can help you get better. You have to get better by surrounding yourself with the right people to start securing the perimeter of your school. And unfortunately, that job does rest on the principal of the school ultimately. But it's a big job, and it requires all hands on deck. And it's just for a short period of time. But it's part of the operations of the school.
I object to the responsiveness of the answer.
I am going to. All right, 1 second. Okay, can you, sorry, I'm trying to make that bigger. Can you see what's on my screen? I somehow lost my screen, so I can't see it.
Yes, you put up my CV, I think.
Okay, and do you have a copy in front of you?
I do.
And I will, it's the document, I'm gonna scroll through, the date on the bottom left-hand corner of page 1 says 3/6/2020, is that correct?
That's correct.
Objection.
Okay, and, how many pages is this document?
6.
Okay, and is this a current copy? Well, let me ask you, what is this?
It's a current copy of what I consider to be educationally sound to place on a CV.
Okay. And I'm sorry, did you say you have a copy with you?
Yes, I do.
Okay, is there any professional experience that's not on this document?
I would say no.
Okay, and looking at, sorry, hold on one second. Looking at page 5, does that accurately reflect your education?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything that you believe under any of the particular top headings that are on these 6 pages? Is there anything that you believe is missing?
No.
Laura, I will go ahead and mark this as defendant's exhibit 1 to this deposition. You know, we've marked other exhibits, but we'll just do this to hers. Oops, sorry. Stop sharing. I don't have any other questions.
No further questions.